So, has anybody felt any loss of any kind this year in 2019? Massive transitions, maybe some tumult, things turning over like rocks being crammed around in the Mississippi River or something like that. What we're going to do before I speak a bit is we're going to actually spend a little time with paradigm, which is this being that's sitting here. You can hear it, right? The volume is actually off. What paradigm is it's a sonic generation instrument, completely analog. It's kind of like having three completely independent singing bowls that are analog, nothing digital, meaning there's no samples, there's no recordings, there's no computers in this. And what it does is it starts from the root tone, starts at the root chakra, the base chakra, and moves up. The chakras were in the Christian teachings. They were just horribly mistranslated, misrepresented. As an example, when it says in Mark 16, which is not in most Bibles end at 15. Some go to 21 in the Gospel of Mark, if you know enough about that kind of stuff, but it's where it mentions Yeshua, Jesus, coming upon Mary Magdalene, and then it's in the classic Christian teachings, out of whom he cast out 7 demons. Well, that word demon in Aramaic is shiadain, and it's kind of like this. It's something it's a force, spirit, energy, frequencies, whatever, that aren't allowed to voice. And that word apek, translated as cast out, means essentially this. I probably should have. That's what it means to cast out a demon. To take something that's constricted and allow it to voice itself. Well, that's what's been happening in 2019. A lot of stuff has been voicing itself. And it's as easy as it is to point. It's not really about an orange-headed monster in a big white house that flees to Florida when the going gets tough. It's really about what's happening inside of us and what we're feeling, because we've had so much of the New Age stuff obsessing us with what we're thinking. But trust me, you've never had an accurate thought in your life. Every thought you've ever had was a delusion of a mind that doesn't exist in the first place. And everybody's like, change your thoughts, change your life. No, change your thoughts. Changing your thoughts will change your perceptions of the movie that you're watching on a screen, but your life is not the movie on the screen. It's not the drama of 2019. Your life is what's watching. You're the watcher, you're the witness. So is there a way to possibly, at least during the meditation, pull down these beautiful, enlightening fluorescents? Are they? There, that's a lot better. That's better, yeah. Just during this. So what we're going to do is, essentially what paradigm does, there's no right and wrong in this. It's as if I had 7 different singing bowls that each of the root tones resonates the center frequency of what Eastern science recognizes as each of the chakras. And it's funny because in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which was not allowed in the Bible, she actually named the 7 demons. Everybody knows the 7 vices, gluttony, sloth, all that stuff. All that was made up. It was all made up long after the lifetime of Jesus. And there's 48 different versions of it, depending on which version of Christianity you look at. When Magdalene mentioned it, Magdalita, she called them darkness, desire, ignorance, the exhilaration of death, the foolish words of the realm, the foolish visions of the flesh, and hostility and wrath. 7 chakras that are, when they're not voicing, they take on the exact opposite quality as they would when they're open. Okay? So all we're going to do is we're going to spend 7 minutes, 1 minute on each chakra. Okay? When we go into something with paradigm or even breath work, one of the fatal, I don't know if it's a flaw, but one of the fatal, I think, bad, not good mistakes people make is going into breath work with an intention, going into all these different healing modalities with intentions. Why is that not good? Well, it's not that it's bad, it's just this. That means you're going in holding on to something. You're holding on to some kind of frame of how this is supposed to go down, okay? This has nothing to do with that. in these deep experiences and modalities, they can't do what they need to do and go where they need to go if you've got all these intentions and goals of what needs to happen here or what you're setting. This is about being 100% totally and completely open, okay? So what we're going to do is just move through 7 different tones with some other tones moving around them. And what's important right now first is to take one deep cleansing breath in through your mouth like this. Hold that just a few moments and then now we're going to do one with the nose. Hold that a few moments and then out with the mouth. All you need to do is be open, okay? This is based on technologies from ancient Egypt, including what's in the Great Pyramids at Giza, or the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Edgar Cayce, Bob Moog, Nikola Tesla. Just be open. It's important that you're breathing in the nose, allow that in the system for a few moments in the temple, and then out through the mouth. If anything feels uncomfortable, there's no resistance. You're simply allowing. up at the crown chakra now. Take a big breath in the nose. Hold that just a few moments in the temple, and then you're safe, babe, Barbara. It's over. Yeah.
You got to that low note toward the end.
Mm-hmm.
Every sinus open and my ears popped.
Well, that's, I guess, good. Well, could someone get the lights again? It's one of the ways I like in spending time with Paradigm, because we have it on a lot, and we're very hyper aware now of frequencies of vibrations, more than I've ever been in my life. And I can go into a room and I can hear the ceiling fans, and you'd think it would be torture. It can be. I guess it's like if you're a medium and you have, let's just say your channels are open, and if you don't know how to shut those down at particular times, you could be like 2 a.m. and somebody's like, hey, can you talk to my son for me? Like 2 o'clock in the morning, different people coming through. So it's like I have to know to kind of how to put my focus. But it's been amazing because I'm so much more hypersensitive to sound now. And even the slightest shift, I'm so wholly and fully aware of it, so much more than I have been in the past. And of course, in this last few years, I think there's been major transition. There's been for us, there's been interesting levels of loss, all kinds of things. Thanksgiving morning, my father, beautiful. I tell people all the time, my mother gave me my ability to say whatever I want, and my father gave me the ability to love wholly and fully with all of my being. Well, he became unresponsive 2 days in New Jersey, 2 days before Thanksgiving. And then Thanksgiving morning, I'm halfway through Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, with John Candy and Steve Martin and Charles Tyner, all these great people. And I got the call. I paused the movie, and then I just happened to pick my phone up, and I got the call that my father had just slipped away. And it was like there's part of me that's there's all the trauma, there's everything, the loss that goes with it. But he timed it on Thanksgiving Day, Gratitude Day. He had been talking to my stepmother, who passed 9 years before, on Veterans Day of 2010, talking to her the day before, my grandmother, saying he was going to see them soon. He loves everybody so much. We knew he was tired. We knew he wanted to go. And it was funny, though, because there's still the loss, but it almost felt selfish for me to really have a lot of intense trauma with it. But then I'm like, yeah, but I have to let the trauma out. I have to allow that to express itself, whether it's quote unquote selfish or not. And it's amazing because I had this real 3-week experience with my head in the clouds where I just went into a daze, and our whole world sort of on Thanksgiving morning went boop, upside down, and the whole world turned upside down. And then of course he asked me to speak at his funeral, which thankfully a guy that had been a friend of his since he was 5 years old said all kinds of stuff before I get up, so I didn't have to do the eulogy per se, because he kind of got all that down. But it's been interesting. A lot of people passing, cancer, things like that. And then we start believing in this birth and death thing. I think it shocks people sometimes when I tell them in Jesus' language in Aramaic, there's no word for afterlife. And people go, are you trying to tell me that he didn't believe in an afterlife? I'm like, no, it's just we're framing it not quite correctly. Because they didn't believe that after death, that, life stopped with death and then something happens after it. To them, life had no beginning and no ending. It is eternity, which your brain can't even comprehend. Birth is that peeking in. This is the fall of man. People say, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to burn in hell. All this good stuff. I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're in it already. This was Hades in the ancient teachings. The underworld is to be in the physical. That's what the underworld is. It's not some molten core in the center of the earth. This is the fall of man. It says, we had that fall where, in the words of Arthur Young, who was the co-inventor of the Bell helicopter, amazing guy, he said that there was a fall of man for the same process by which light first precipitates or condenses into matter, losing a degree of freedom or everywhereness in exchange for permanence or now-here-ness. Powerful stuff. But we start thinking that there's a birth and there's a death and there's somehow an inside and there's an outside. We start having issues with a story. There's lots of stories. You're not your story. All of this beautiful stuff about changing your thoughts, it's nice. Trust me, you're barking up the wrong tree. It's not that there's something wrong about getting in here and changing these, but these are something that's locked in a delusion that's not there in the first place. And I love what Paramahansa Yogananda says. I say it all the time. He said to transfer our sense of identity from the pseudo-soul, the ego, which is what Yeshua called ape, which was translated as hypocrite, which is the word for veil, the veil of the temple. It means a purple curtain in the doorway of the church, right? No. Where's the temple? Us. So the veil of the temple is the hypocrite. The hypocrite is the word ape. What that actually meant was persona. What does persona mean? It's a Latin mask. The persona, the ape, and this is something his listeners would have understood. It's completely lost in modern Christianity, but they would understand him saying, that in which you judge another, you are guilty of practicing. That's not you that says that. It's your mask. It's your persona, because the persona was something that the actors would wear in a divine play. They'd start they'd start the play with the mask on, ultimately by the end transcending and revealing the true self. So Yogananda said to transfer our sense of identity from the pseudo-soul or ego back to the inherent nature of our divinity and to become the ever-joyous witness of a stupendous cosmic drama. Whew. All I can say is, in terms of stupendous cosmic drama, there's not much more effective to kind of tear you away from your unconsciousness in that movie than massive loss. Massive loss. Interesting thing there, how that works. We actually went through something, 2 days ago with our nephew's child, Devin, his child, Nova, who I should have brought a big picture. I don't want to start her crying, but now as soon as I say that, Nova is this amazing little being of light who parents weren't taking care of him. They weren't feeding him properly. They were taking him out in the cold with almost no clothes on. A lot of stuff was going on, so we ended up fighting to be able to give him what he needed. And then unfortunately what happened in the last few months is the family that, the mother's family who have lots of money, the family that she warned us to keep the baby away from because they would destroy him like they did her. See, this is all the story that's happening. Came in with lots of money and threw it at the biggest lawyer they could find in Asheville, who happened to be in the pocket of a judge. And even though this is the story now, this is just the story, is everybody breathing? Even though it came out about all the issues, the fact that she would twist his arm at night because he was crying, when he was 2-3 months old, trying to get him to shut up, screaming at him, hurling obscenities at him, blowing marijuana smoke in his face and laughing when his hands got all funny in the way he was moving. He went back with them on Friday. So that's a big one. For our daughter, Lucinda, she lives 2 doors down the road from us. She's been staying at our house at night because she doesn't want to go in her house because there's the playpen, there's everything else. So there's the story. Nova is his name, amazing being. Tremendous loss, intense. It's intense. You can see everything happening on a world level. All of everything, mass shootings. I'll just say politics and then exit that phrase. Just everything's going on, tumult. And I'm becoming aware of like this roaring 20s thing that's getting ready to come. Of course, we're 100 years removed from it. My wife's a model, so she just did a photo shoot like in full flapper regalia, was it last week? That's amazing, all this roaring 20s stuff. With that in mind, I'm going to kind of sidestep and pass these around. This is 2020 Vision, Awaken to Wholeness, Transformation, or Transformative New Year's Celebration. This is something I'm co-hosting New Year's Eve in Asheville, which is a week from Tuesday, at Jubilee downtown. With Brian Pergrossi, Annie Marie. Brian's a sort of a consciousness teacher that I've done retreats and events with before. Ash Ruiz, who used to be the singer of a band called Inner Voice, and then Here to Hear. Dale Allen Hoffman, whoever he is. Doctors Love and Martin, Amy Steinberg, Bob Sima, and Shannon Plummer, who I've been working with for years, Christine Linne, who's an amazing guitarist, and then John Stringer and Kathy Stringer. What we're doing is we're going to actually, it starts at 4 p.m., goes till 2 a.m., and we're going to bring the new year in consciously instead of, kind of unconsciously. I've never done that before on New Year's Eve. We're going to do it in a much different way. And we actually we're going to be building the energy to a crescendo in the few minutes leading up to the transition into the new year, the new decade, into the roaring 20s. It's going to be some really powerful stuff we're doing, so I'm just kind of throwing that out there. There's still tickets right now, as of right now. I don't know how long. I don't know how close we are to being sold out, but I know we've sold crazy amounts of tickets for that. I'm just throwing it out there. So I'm going to read this that Bill wrote, at least that he claimed he wrote. Birthing the Cosmic Christ. In this universe, at least, the first cosmic incarnation of the eternal Christ, the perfect joining of matter and spirit, occurred some 13.8 billion years ago at the Big Bang. The incalculable power of God burst outward from its source to infuse and animate a newly created material realm. Christians believe that Jesus of Nazareth, what's Nazareth? Anybody know what Nazareth is? That's where he was from, right?
Yeah, where they lived. Yeah.
Where they lived. Nazareth is an ancient Aramaic word, Natsarit, that means initiate. Christians don't know that. Was the perfect and whole incarnation of that same mystery 2,000 years ago. Human and divine united in a single body. Calling Jesus the Christ is intoning the title of this historical and cosmic purpose. This is good stuff. The Christ is whenever the material and the divine coexist, which is always and everywhere in everything. The Christ is God's active power inside of the physical world. So what about Christmas? Christ Mass. In this season of light, we celebrate the incarnation of eternal spirit with flesh. We specifically do so by acknowledging the full incarnation of this ancient spiritual power that infused the universe at its creation as coming into the body of the Christ child, Jesus. But not just only in Jesus, if we could see who we truly are, if I could see who I am, if I could see who you are. Man, that's good stuff. That's awesome. I'm going to steal it. I'm going to take credit for it, and I'm not going to give credit to anybody. So, yeah, the story, there's so many stories, though. It's easy to believe the story. Anybody been lost in a story this year? Been to see a movie, and then you forgot you were watching the movie, and there's all the violence, or, whatever's going on. I feel, it's not pride, but it feels great that after however 20-some years of reminding myself to breathe when things get intense, I don't have to remind myself anymore. And I can be in a movie and the most intense stuff can be happening. Who was my spiritual master? I wouldn't call him my spiritual master. Who was my spiritual teacher? Like Quentin Tarantino. Go to see one of his movies. Either you're breathing or you're like, just forget it. But I don't have to remind myself about it anymore. And with everything happening that's going on in the world, all these swirls like with my father, I started having this sort of question in my head of like, am I really feeling it to its fullness? Am I really integrating it and grounding it? Or am I just stifling it down and not feeling it and saying that I am? It's an interesting little thought there. And I started digging deeper, and I feel pretty amazing that, 10 years ago, I would have been in a puddle on the floor in a lot of these situations that now, we literally chose to be here right now at this point in human history. We are the grounding rods for humanity. We literally came here, chose to be here to navigate the cosmic shift that's happening right now. And that's the funny thing about when the pendulum swings in one direction into the, I'll just say it again, the political spectrum of what can be happening right now. It's not really about swinging it back over there again. It's about finding that place of balance somewhere in the middle where everybody has a voice that can be heard, rather than we've got control and this back and forthness. So you can look at the story just in terms of Jesus. Let's talk about that. I just mentioned Jesus of Nazareth. So Jesus was, where was he born?
Bethlehem, supposedly.
But what's his name?
Oh, Jesus.
The way it's put across in the religion today is that it's where their bloodline's from. Okay, so their father. Who's his father? Let's look at it that way too. Nice question, but think about that. The Immaculate Conception, one of many dozens, but what I'm saying is this. Kind of funny. They were in Bethlehem. Why?
Supposedly a taxation set up.
There was no taxes that year. There was no census. Even if you give it a 2-year pad in either direction, there was no census that was taken historically. It didn't happen. Okay. Well, that's just one of the stories. There was another story that said what? At Christmas, they weren't even there. They fled to Egypt so that he wouldn't be beheaded, little baby Jesus, because they were killing little boys at the time. Kind of funny how that works out. Now, okay, so he's in Bethlehem. He was born in a stable. Okay. First of all, it doesn't. Has anybody ever seen the word stable in the four Gospels? It says he was laid in a manger. Where's the stable idea come from? Let's pause for a second. What did he do?
Oh, carpenter.
He was a carpenter. Anybody ever been in the Middle East? There's something that's not there. There's no trees. Carpenter. That means he worked one day a year. He might have carved a mantelpiece one day a year. Funny thing, there's no word for carpenter in Aramaic. There's no word for carpenter in ancient Koine Greek either. The word was tekton in Greek, which means craftsman, which has nothing to do with what he did as a trade as a human. Without going too deep, craftsman, tekton, is a Gnostic term that means essentially the architect of the universe or the cosmos, of all celestial beings, light, etc., bodies. Funny how that works out. So again, stable. Where does the stable come from? You don't know where the neat little sort of, we've got them all over the place, carved in wood. Well, actually the word is, it started in Italy in the year 1223. It was called a presepe or a presepio, and a pretty famous dude did it, St. Francis of Assisi. He was the first person that took the nativity scene, put it in a local Italian farmer context so that the young local children would be able to relate to baby Jesus rather than this kid from a couple thousand miles that way in a culture they would never understand. And today we say he's born in a stable, but guess what? It's not in the Bible. Well, it doesn't say cave either. Well, no, don't jump ahead of me. Don't jump ahead of me. This has to be unpacked slowly. He's heard me do this before. So, all right, you need to exit the room, young man. I'm just kidding. So, funny. Well, yeah, that just kind of came up there. Okay, so it says he was laid in an animal's feed trough. It says he was born in the stable because there was no room in the inn. No. In Aramaic or in Greek, neither language does it say inn. What it says is that he was laid in an animal's feeding trough because there was no room in the main dwelling room of the house. Kind of like a cave. The main dwelling area was higher, a little bit lower at the time. Remember, they weren't living in cabins. They didn't have wood. And if they did have wood, it was not much. They were carving things out, and most of their homes were made of what would be kind of like adobe, straw and clay and mud and all this earthen stuff. And they would kind of plop it on top of each other. But the animals were kept lower in the house. Why would they be kept lower? Heat. Of course, with body heat from animals comes other things. And you kind of wonder if they had exhaust fans, I don't think they did. But so he was actually down there because there was no room in the main dwelling area. So this is all stuff that we have. People read the Bible and they spit it out. If you haven't noticed in the South, there's billboards all over that just happen to be in King James English from the 17th century. And you hear, "Thou art," and "Verily, verily, I say unto thee." And all this, "Verily, verily." Who says verily? Do you think Jesus said it? You know how I know he didn't say it? Because English didn't exist 2,000 years ago.
Here's something you said in manger, but you're saying the same thing. If you think of the French word to eat, manger. So obviously manger came from.
Well, the English, yeah. Well, it's not just French. It's in the Latinized Romance languages. The manger, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that funny how that works? As opposed to mangy, but which has nothing to do with the conversation at hand. But what I'm saying is, if they can't get the story right, and we've got all this, we're looking at things in King James English that's like 400 years old to reference something that's 2,000 years old. And nobody thinks about it. Verily, verily. You know what the word verily was in Jesus' language when he would say that? Amen. Amen. Which means from this rooted, fertile earth center, amen is the mispronunciation we throw out over here. So we've got this whole drama, we've got this whole story. We look out at the cosmos and we see all of these crazy amounts of lights. Kind of funny how that works out. And then we're supposed to think that one of these lights is somehow the miraculous one, but not the others. One of these is the Son of God. Funny how that works out, because in Greek, monogones means only born. In other words, the only birthed out of a family. But in Aramaic, the word is chedaya in John 3:16, which literally means one who is completely single and limitless. Chad in the middle of the word is the word one in Aramaic. Aya means something that has no boundary, has no beginning and no ending. And then the ya sound at the beginning of chedaya means who. One who is single and limitless. Is that anything like the only born? Does anybody know when he became the only born? When he was born, right? Did he become the only born when the Bible was written? Is that when he became only begotten? He became only begotten in the year 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea, overseen by Constantine in Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, Turkey. Most Christians don't know that. They voted on it, and he became only begotten, which all of a sudden made one of those dots miraculous, but that dot's not you. Even though, how many lights am I holding? One. So let me wrap this up with some insights that I started feeling out and realizing. So, talking about that beautiful little boy, Nova, let's cross-reference one other thing. And then I'm going to tell you what the word nova means, okay? Just happened, just a few hours ago, from the perception right now of the Caribbean, it would have been northeastern Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and southern Europe, right around the Mediterranean. They would have seen this at the time of Jesus. Right now you can see it because of the precession of the equinoxes. You can see it from basically the Caribbean, where the Son, the only begotten S-U-N, which was also known as the S-O-N, of course, in the theology, drops down into the region of what's called the Southern Crux. which is a constellation of stars, which is kind of a cockeyed cross. And the sun drops down right into the center of that cross from the perception of Earth. It happened a few hours ago on the solstice. And it stays there dead on the cross for 3 days. Late on December 24th, I always get goosebumps, early on December 25th, the three kings, the three stars of Orion's belt, still known as the three kings today, point directly at Sirius, the dog star, the star in the east, which lines up in line with the only begotten Son of God, which on Christmas morning will be moving 1 degree north off of the southern crux from the perception of Earth. Dead on the cross for 3 days, born on Christmas morning. And of course, he wasn't born at Christmas time because they don't tend their flocks at Christmas time. They do that in the spring. So you can throw that into the mix too. But in line of all these beautiful things about celestial bodies and stars, let me tell you what nova means. First of all, the word for star in Aramaic, which actually, kukbe is the word. It doesn't just mean star, it also means planet or celestial body, okay? Talking about stars. So nova. Nova is a star that shows a sudden large increase in brightness and growth, and then slowly returns to its original state over a period of time. Interesting how that just happened. In Greek, the feminine nominative singular of Latin novus, new, the feminine is used since stella, which is star, is feminine. Thus, nova is a shortening of nova stella, which means new star. Whew. So there's all this obsession about birth. There's all this obsession about death. In the end, really what we should be doing is doing our best to keep our hearts open, letting go of the story, and allowing that birth to happen. Because, here I am talking about stars, and I hear Joni Mitchell, we are stardust, we are golden. Of course, she was completely stoned in David Geffen's apartment in New York when she was writing that song while all her friends were back in Woodstock. But still, it's a great song. We are stardust. So I just want to do this. I'd like to acknowledge everybody for surviving this year. And I don't mean that tongue-in-cheek in any way. As a matter of fact, let me bring one more being into the room. Barbara Waterhouse, who, we've known over 15 years, our minister in Asheville. She, at the service last week, she started slurring her words. And then she ended up being rushed to Mission Hospital. She's had several brain surgeries. They put a stent in one artery on one side. The other side was so fully blocked that it would have killed her if they proceeded. So they had to stop. And then yesterday morning, she had a stroke. So all I'm saying is this. We haven't been actually members there in about maybe 5 or 6 years. But just not only Barbara, whether you know her or not, just remember that everybody that you seem to not be getting along with and all the drama and the trauma that's happening, all this stuff is a natural progression of how people were raised, the experiences they had. But of course, even amidst all of that, we're always at choice. We're always at choice. You always have choices. And I think if there's anything that we should be taking into 2020, the roaring 20s, it's the choice to be, look at our license plate. It's right outside the door. A silver SUV right outside the door, a Chevy Equinox. It says open. And of course, people see my gorgeous wife and they're like, what exactly does that mean, open? I'm like, well, it means whatever you need it to mean, buddy. But what I'm saying is this. I threw that word into the mix 25 years ago at the end of a gathering, and your hands are together and people throw in peace, love, healing, all these different words. It's funny because I tossed opening in, and it's been my word ever since because I realized open allowed the love, the peace, the presence, the healing, but it didn't hold on to any of them. It allowed things to transition. It allows birth. It allows death. It allows loss. It allows growth. It allows retraction because it's open. And it just allows, in the words of the Lakota, let the wind blow through you. And it's funny because Yeshua said before his healings, he would often say, right in the Bible, even in the King James, it says, et fatach, which means be open. So in other words, let go. if we can just let go and actually live these beliefs that we've been spouting for so long, I think 2020 can be the most amazing year humanity has ever seen. Rather than if we keep buying into the story, it's going to go, in the words of Greg Braden's adorable mother, to hell in a handbasket. Is that what you want? Fighting against an effect without, while all the while nourishing its cause in your heart? Doesn't sound so good. James Allen right there. So with that, I say thank you for being open. It's time to make the Roaring 20s a beautiful experience. Let go of the drama, let go of the story, because trust me, you don't even know what the story is. 10 people show up at a car accident. They all see the same thing. The police show up and they get 10 stories that are completely unrelated. It's not in the history books. It's not in the Bible. I'm sorry. I've studied every Bible I could get my hands on, every language I could get my hands on, and eventually I realized it was in me the whole time. Namaste. Thank you for being open. And so it is.